Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming today. I'm Dan. Through a few years ago, through a curious turn of events, I inherited the job of approving Andrew's use of the official Android trademark, which means that I get to see all of his designs before anybody else. And so when they asked me to introduce him, I've got a few stories, as you might imagine, but I knew immediately there's only one story that I could tell, which is this. As I'm sure you guys all remember, if you follow the little vinyl bug droid figurines at all, in Series 1, one of the designs was just a green, straight up green bug droid. But in Series 2, there was one that was a blue, straight up blue bug droid, which I always thought was a little odd. And then in Series 3, there was a red one. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then a few months ago, I saw the designs for Series 4, and there was this kind of like orangey, yellowish one on there too. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is an opportunity not to be missed. So I pound off this email and I'm like, dude, what you need to do is like that orangey gold one there, like you need to make that Google yellow, because then we'll have like all four of the Google colors. And if you're like a long-term collector, you can like set these up in Google colors. I'm like, this is such a great idea, right? So a few minutes later, I get a response and he says, yeah, that's actually your laptop's color reproduction. That's already supposed to be, it will be Google Yellow. He's like, I had this planned all along. And so I became enlightened. And so I'd just like to say thanks for all your hard work, welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your day to come listen to me talk and look at some of my artwork. I'm just going to go through my art and my career a little bit, show you some of the work I've been working on the last couple of years, how I got there, and then we'll move on to some Android stuff after that, and then we'll take some questions at the end. So let's get started. Any of you guys in any art-related department here? No? Nope. I know there's one small one in the corner of the other building. Yeah. All right, let's get, hopefully this will all work. All right, this is the story of how I accidentally, it's kind of dark, but it's how I accidentally became a professional artist. So this is my childhood. And that's going to mess anyone up, right? I was destined to be something other than a doctor or a lawyer from that point. I had to work out some serious issues. This is actually in probably the very early 80s in England. I was born in England. And being in England, some of my early influences was this guy's Postman Pat. It was one of the early like Bob the Builder style stop motion animations. And then moved on to Danger Mouse, awesome cartoon out of England. And as I got older, I got a little cooler, started skateboarding. If any of you skateboard, you probably recognize this by an artist named Jim Phillips out of California. Very iconic. And then reading comics, one of my favorite one was Bloom County. I didn't really understand it when I was reading it, but I loved the art style and the design. And then as I got a little bit older, I got a computer. I was lucky enough to have a father who was a bit of an early adopter. We had one of the first CD drives. It was like this big, And we had an Apple IIe, Apple IIc, so I learned Logo Basic. And the first thing I did with it was try to draw with it. This is not from the Apple. This is a little later. But I got a computer, and I saw a computer as an opportunity to be creative, not just as an opportunity to do spreadsheets. So eventually we got a 386 SX16 with 16 color monitor, and it was amazing. So I started doing some ASCII artwork. I ran a BBS for a while called Apocalypse, if you can actually read that. It says Apocalypse. And then eventually I moved up to all 16 colors and started incorporating some of the artwork that I grew up on and loved as a kid into ANSI graphics, which is just translating comics and things for bulletin board system logins. Are there any BBS nerds? Anyone old enough to? We got a couple. All right. Everyone else like, what's happening? And then this is kind of where it went wrong. I wasn't destroyed by a Terminator. It's more so this is when I saw the computer. It wasn't just this little toy to play around on and make little graphics. This was like a serious tool, and I was kind of blindsided. It's no other art mattered anymore. When I was growing up, I used to draw and doodle and make clay sculptures, but then I saw this, and I can make things real with this. It's amazing. This is the future. And so when I got old enough to go to college, I decided to go to art school. Oh, I forgot that slide, sorry. But instead of picking art school based on what the best art program would be or what the best teachers were, I picked it on who had the best computers. I went to a few different schools, and that's what really mattered to me. So I ended up going to School of Visual Arts in Manhattan because they had a lab filled with SGIs, which I guess is appropriate for this building, right? And I was like, whoa, these are the things I've seen on that one TV special they put out about CGI before it was popular or people knew what it was. And I was just blown away. So I spent years kind of ignoring the fine art side. I still take drawing and painting classes, but I was focused on the computer as not a tool, as the tool. I was kind of one-track minded. I did some okay stuff. This was for my thesis project about killer teddy bears. And a bit of an aside, for the end of the thesis project, you need to have some sort of logo or graphic or something. So in case anyone's wondering where my company name came from, my company is Dead Zebra Inc., and everyone wonders, like, how did you come up with that? It was a joke in college, is how I came up with that. And it's since been abstracted a bit to the current logo I still use today. So fast forward a few years, couldn't find a job in New York doing 3D animation. There wasn't really too much going on there. Blue Sky was still working on Ice Age 1. It hadn't come out yet. I think there was Rhythm and Hues doing commercials, but wasn't too much to be had. And no offense to California, but I didn't want to come out to California. All the 3D jobs were in LA, and being in New York for a few years, I just fell in love with New York. I couldn't see myself driving everywhere. So I was lucky enough when I was in college to get an internship at Marvel Comics, which was great. Just randomly, from my experience in the past doing computer graphics and putting together some crappy little web pages, someone said, hey, come work for free for us. I said, all right, sounds great. And eventually that turned into a little job, and then eventually that job turned into another job at Nickelodeon. So I was at Nickelodeon for 5 years, and while there, these guys were born. This is 2002, and this is the reason I am an independent professional artist. It's not Apple, it's not a Mac, it's because this computer sucked. This is I'll explain. So every time this computer that I worked on, not this exact one, but one very similar, it would crash several times a day, and it would take about 5 to 10 minutes to reboot. I don't know if it was the software on there or the networking or what, but it was awful and it was a waste of time. So every time it would crash, I would just grab a little note card or a Post-it note and draw something on the side. Not actively thinking, oh, I'm getting back into illustration, this is great. Just thinking I need to kill 5 minutes and look like I'm doing something so I don't get fired. And they're not very good. There's like a pickle with legs. I don't even know what that is. But I mean, it happened often enough that this is my desk after a while. You see, I just started putting them up on my cubicle and around up top there. And after 2 months, I had 100-something little monsters lying around. And so being as savvy as I am, I thought, the internet. I should put them on the internet. That's a great idea. Other people should see me wasting time. So it's not just my coworkers. So using my rudimentary skills, this is my first website. It was built on PHP, some HTML, and it was built so crappily that if I didn't upload a new drawing every day, the site would crash completely. So that was kind of good motivation for me to practice, because they would take my email down with it. I mean, it was that bad. I really didn't know what I was doing. But I ended up keeping up the schedule for years, and I had to force myself into it because I was still getting out of that mindset as the computer is the tool, and I had to go a long way around there. So I started putting them up, new drawings. I put out some black and white screen prints, just mostly for myself and my friends. And then people were going to the website on a regular basis. I had some friends doing webcomics and comic books, and they shared my link. Back in the day, there maybe been some web rings, if anyone remembers those web rings. And eventually I put out a t-shirt, and people bought it, maybe like a dozen people, but to me that was blowing my mind, And a little, just like stapled together book with some of my drawings in black and white. And over the years, the drawings got a little bit better, the website got a bit better, it no longer crashed all the time, but I did manage to keep up my daily schedule for I think 6 or 7 years straight, which is kind of crazy now that I think about it. I didn't have much of a life in general. I took out some ads and some magazines. Still doing this all on the side while I was at work. Drew some more creatures, drew some more creatures, drew some more creatures, a few more, kept going. And eventually I had a pretty good stable full of monsters to deal with. So armed with all my monsters and a book and some new t-shirt designs and a toy, we'll talk about those more later. The next obvious step was to head to Comic-Con, where I could really meet the fans one-on-one and talk to people and have a really close interpersonal relationship with everyone. Comic-Con, oh, yeah, this is Comic-Con. I'm here somewhere, I think. Oh yeah, here I am, that's my booth. All right, luckily I'd done some smaller Comic-Cons before that, so I wasn't totally blown away, but here's proof that I can actually interact with fans at Comic-Con on a one-on-one basis. And I got a chance to sort of be spontaneous, talk to people, draw on the spot, doodle for people. Probably done thousands of doodles, just people that walk up to the booth. And this was 2005 when I said, all right, I've got enough people that are kind of buying some t-shirts and prints from me, that know about me, that I'm gonna quit my job and see how it goes for, I'll give myself 6 months to a year. That was 7 years ago, so it's still going okay. I started taking my drawings over there. I had this is an art show at a little toy store in New York called Kid Robot. Has anyone seen that? This is on the original store in Soho. It was pretty tiny. So it was just, art among the merchandise. But for me, that was a pretty big step. And then I got a gallery show. So my first solo gallery show, I decided to tackle the tiny, easy to deal with subject of everything between life and death in the form of different chromosomes in the artwork. And everything in between that, including viruses, tumors, parasites. This little sculpture with eggs and skulls together. And if anyone's ever been to New York for an extended period of time or is in the art scene, you've probably been to hundreds of gallery shows. I know I have. And they get boring. They kind of blend together. They're just art on white walls. And I realize that, and my artwork is no exception. So I think one of the best things to do in that situation is try to create an experience, just something that people will remember. I think Google's really good at that, especially with the Google Doodle team. So you go to the home page, and there's something to interact with. So you might, you're going to forget just if you go to the Google page, there's a logo, it's fine. But if you go there and you can actually experience something, you're going to remember that. So just sometimes it's as simple as painting a wall and creating context for your artwork and products to live in. It's just adding some graphics. Sometimes it's just surrounding the artwork. And then sometimes it's going really big and it's taking over an entire space. This is the cafe section of a gallery space in the south of France. Actually, in Paris, just out of Paris. Wall-to-ceiling graphics. Can't really avoid it. And then this is probably one of my favorite experiences we created. This was in a gallery show in Chicago, a little store called Roto Fuji. They have a gallery and a shop. And the show itself was about famine and death, and it was called Love the End. And my relationship was falling apart at the time, really dark, earth-ending volcanoes and oil rigs bursting into flames and loneliness. But in the corner of the gallery over here, we built a pit. It was about 4 feet deep and maybe like 5 feet wide. And we filled it with 100 of these guys. They were called Warrables. They were designed when you hug them, they take all your worries away from you, make you feel better. And so the show that was actually pretty dark, all the work, it's still kind of playful, but we had kids jumping in this pit and having a great, this one kid in particular was beating the hell out of everyone else that would come near him with the Warrables. And so since then, if given the opportunity, I think creating experience rather than just throwing your art up is probably the right way to go. So I'm just going to go through some of now I'm just going to throw some art up on the screen and show you some art. But you're experiencing it. So this is some of my work on paper. I've tried to go beyond just the standard black and white imagery that I was used to, doing some things. I started out just trimming some edges, making some paper look gold, adding some details, little gold paint here and there, getting a little more involved in the shading. And then after that, I decided to take a little bit further. You can't really see here, but I'll zoom in. This little guy has 3 different layers of paper. So he's got the eyeball on one, then the main drawing, and then behind it, there's a bit more depth. And I extended that a bit more. This one has metal needles and like 4 or 5 different layers. It's kind of bright in here. A lot of these are kind of dark, I apologize. And yeah, this one includes cotton stuffing, needles, thread. You can see some of the details here. And I still do the black and white drawings. I try to make them a little more elaborate. I've added a few more shades of gray to spice them up a bit. Not just dark, not just light gray, some cool grays, some warm grays, some yellowish grays, a few reds here and there. And they've gotten a little more complex sometimes. This is one from a show about brothers. And some people might have seen this one. This is the Android brothers having some delicious apple. And I don't know if you can see that. It's on watercolor paper to give a little more texture. And I think I've sort of settled somewhere in the middle where this is, it's got the deckled edges. I gave it a little bit of gold on the edges. And then in the middle there of the head, there's a little gemstone on the paper. So that's kind of where this is recently, it's kind of where I am these days. You can see the thing there. All right. And all right, I want to talk a bit about prints or the recession special. It's kind of helped me survive that period a few years ago where everything was pretty rough. I started a little club where you could pay for a monthly fee and you get a print every month. So it was a way for people to stay engaged with me without a major commitment, but know they're going to get something on a regular basis. And I love prints. Prints are fun to do, they're fun to make, and they're a great way to translate stuff that is either too expensive or too big or too crazy to otherwise deal with. So there's a painting that I did that's I think about 5 feet tall, over 8 feet wide. Obviously kind of hard to hang in your New York apartment, but prints, good way to translate it. This is just a lithograph. Printing gives you so many options. This is a screen print with many colors, and the great thing about screen printing is it gives you some texture options too. We did the main colors in flat, and the black outlines were in a high gloss contrast black. So when you see it in person, it really has a nice feel in the hand. And these are letterpress prints. And how they make those is they have these blocks of metal with the different images on them, and they sort of stamp them into the paper. So when you look at them and you look at the paper, it's actually indented in there. The inks are impressed in the paper. So it really gives you a good physical feel. Very different from the flat screen that we're used to. I still did some digital stuff. This is a digital print of a drawing, but I decided to do each one different. So each print club member, this is the base one. So each member of the print club got a different one. So I take the base digital print and draw on it with pencil and color to give everyone a little different experience. I still love digital because it lets me do colorful and fun things quickly and easily. This is from a recent show opened 2 weeks ago in Vienna called Ob Obst, which was about fruit. I like food. I like food artwork. So some cherries. This is a fun one, toast. And this is probably the most popular one I've done. This is called Never Look Back. And it started just as a digital print in a show in 2005, but it inspired a sequel, Never Look Back 2, and a trequel. And beyond that, a toy. And this guy as well. And prints and toys are something that kind of go great together. People don't always have room for the toys, or they can't afford the toys, but usually there's some wall space. So I like to, if I have a toy coming out, I like to pair it with a print as an option for collectors. So speaking of toys, and I have toys in quotes here because I'm sure most of you are familiar with adult collectibles that are not toys for adults. They're not adult toys, but they're toys for adults. There's a very big difference. And when people ask me what I do these days, I have to be very specific. To me, toys that I put out are sculptures. They're short-run, limited edition sculptures. And they might be made of vinyl or plastic, but they might as well be bronze to me. Like that's how I see them. This whole scene started probably in the late 90s. I was working at Nickelodeon when I first saw this stuff. I had a coworker who had one of these guys on his desk. Said, "Hey, what's that toy and you're carrying on your desk?" And he told me, "Oh, it's this toy by this designer in Hong Kong. This guy on the left here is Eric So, and the guy on the right is Michael Lau." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Where'd you get it?" He told me where he got it, and he's like, "It was like $120. What? You paid $120 for a toy? You're insane. So I went down to the store, and then I think I spent $300 on toys that day. I had never considered that before. As an artist, I'd never considered that you could have something that wasn't a $3,000 metal sculpture or a giant stone sculpture. This is just, it's somewhere in between a toy for kids and a fine piece of fine art. A lot of them are limited to anywhere from 5 to 500. So I immediately started working on something. I started this guy in 2004. This is my first toy named Groob. And the toys that I'd seen up until that point were they were just little statues, but I wanted to make it a little more interactive. So you could swap his faces out depending on your mood and how you're feeling that day. My second toy was called Zlix. And it came in a 3-set, and I tried to carry some of that interactivity over. You could swap their heads out, swap their eyeballs out. There were different colors, and you could swap between the few. But this toy is when it really clicked to me that I had not wasted my 4 years in art school learning computer art because, 3D printing is now a thing. It was still pretty expensive and not very accessible when I started working on this, but it was when I came full circle, I think. I was like, oh, hey, I can use what I learned to do prototyping. So we did some color mock-ups. And here's that guy, Zlix, another set. And this was, after that was a guy called The Giver. And the idea behind this guy was that each one would come with a gift or a present that he'd present to you. And this is the Giver, this one is, he has the Dumpling of Doom. This is the Pestilence Edition Giver Dumpling of Doom. It's cute, it's still a little dark. I think that sort of sums up my style. This was the Giver of War. It came with it's hard to see here, but the bomb has a big F on it. So he came with an F-bomb. This one is called the A-Type, and it was a collaboration with a store in New York called My Plastic Heart, and there's an extrapolation of their logo, which is a plastic heart. And he was fun because I used my computer to previs how he would sit and stand, and if he could hang upside down. This is a recent one called Can of Worms. And this is the one that just came out maybe like a week ago. This is called The Deal Maker. And he's one of the first Japanese-style soft vinyl productions to be made in the US. Until now, most of it's been done in Japan, or there's been some Hong Kong versions of it as well. But that was made in California, right here. And this one is coming up, so spoilers. This is from my company, Dead Zebra. And it's about 8 inches tall. It's sort of a chess piece style thing. His mouth opens, you can put things inside of it. And I'm excited about this because it also comes with a pair of shoes. When I go to do something, I often, if I'm in my house and I need like a new hat or a new table or a new bookshelf, instead of saying I'm going to go to IKEA, I say, can I make one? Can I go get one made? So I've always wanted my own kind of shoes, but I was wearing two. I usually wear Onitsuka Tigers, which is what this is. So one day I was like, I need a new pair of shoes. I should see if I can hook up with them and work on something. And that will be coming out this summer. So yeah, working with other companies is always fun. So sometimes they have a platform that they've already designed that they give to you to see what you can do with. This is a Dunny figure from Kid Robot. It's been around for a while. It's one of the original popular collectibles. And sometimes you have less to work with. This is pretty basic, but I tried to translate my artwork to it. And then other times, I get to be in control of the platform, which is nice. I think you guys are familiar with this. We'll come back to some Androids. I got plenty to show you in a few minutes. But this is from Series 1, one of the original ones, and this is more recent, Sir Knightley build. And so I still do some sculptures, actual sculptures, one-off editions, 2 or 3 editions. This is called Heart Attack. And it's sort of a heart just running in a blood splat. I'm still obsessed with food. This was some zombie candy corn. I did a series of 3 or 4 of these, and they came with little magnets in their feet, so you could put them on different stands or stick them on things. And then last year, I followed that up with a Kill Cat. Evil wafers, sort of Siamese twin monsters. And then recently, I do some healthy food too. So some apples, some evil apples, some sad apples, and some more figurative stuff. It's kind of hard to see, they're dark. But this was a small baby creature in a mousetrap. It's kind of strange, I suppose. Now that I say it out loud, that sounds kind of horrible. But even with the sculptures, I try to make it where it's something that's still sort of practical. This was a wall-hanging unit. It came with this guy, but I did another one that came with nothing, so you could put your own stuff inside of it if you wanted to. And this guy, you could take his head out and put a cone of incense in his head, and then light it up, and he would smoke out of his eyes. And then somewhere in between the sculpture and the toy is a resin edition. So you can do a design and then run 30, 40, 100 of them. It's not quite toy production. It's not quite individual hand production, but I like to hand finish them, make each one a little different. Put some weather on them. These were called glop in a box. And with the resin production, this is called the Watcher. I did this for a show. It's about this big. It's a pretty good one. And I took that and I had a few extras made of the blank resin. So it's been transformed into various things, including this bat and an octopus with an egg in his mouth for a show. This is based off another artist's character called Scary Girl. And this guy turned into this. So there's sort of a subset of the toy and collectible world, do-it-yourself. It's pretty popular. Sometimes you get a figure and you just paint on it or draw on it, and other times you get something that's kind of already set in what it looks like. This is called Misfortune Cat from an artist named Ferg. So I took that guy, I sculpted on top of him, hollowed out his belly, added a skull, and ended up with this. And then sometimes they give you some things that like this. It's a station wagon. They had a show of custom station wagons, which is a challenge to me because I draw monsters. I don't draw station wagons. So I strapped a giant monster to the roof. And you might recognize this guy, Stitch. So I like to reimagine things as much as possible instead of just slapping artwork on something. So I dismantled this poor little Stitch here and reassembled him into 2 characters called Milo and Ditch. So that's some of my artwork. I hope you will join me at looking at your world a little differently, maybe deconstruct some things, maybe approach your food with caution or sympathy, depending on how you feel that day. I'm going to show you guys some Android stuff if you're interested. Anyone? All right. How many of you guys have Android collectibles? Hey, it's pretty much everyone. I guess you wouldn't be here otherwise, right? So, a few years back, got the opportunity to start working on these guys. If you'd like to hear about it. Some of our early prototype testing designs. So how it came about is actually through comics, strangely enough. So my time at Comic-Con was also not wasted. I got to meet an artist at the small press table who was doing weird little comics on the side, who also happened to be a developer. And he happened to develop for a little company called Danger. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Danger, which Andy Rubin ran, which later started Android, and the rest is history. But my contact with this guy just through Comic-Con and our subsequent friendship led to him calling me up one day and saying, "Oh, hey, we got this project at Google, and we can do some promotional stuff for it. You make toys? Got any ideas?" I said, "Yeah, I got some ideas. See what we can do." So we started working on a little mini figure here. This is some of the early concepts. The top one's basically what we ended up with. We were trying to figure out what to do with the legs. As you know, the Android figure itself would probably just topple over if it was just cylindrical legs. We tried maybe make them short, give them a lower center of gravity, make them round, maybe make them triangular, but just the top one felt the most natural, so we went with that. Here's some of the early designs from Series 1. Some of them kind of made it through. You can kind of see where, if you're familiar with Series 1, you can see what they turned into. My favorite one on the top right there was rejected quite quickly. This was my design. I thought it was awesome. But someone in the Google legal department had other issues with it. I don't know why. I think it should still be made. So yeah, Series 1. It was mostly designed by myself, and it was originally just going to be an internal promotional giveaway sort of situation, some goodies. But I said, hey, you know what? There's this whole toy world. People might be into this. People might be interested in this. Can I make a few more and maybe sell them to them? And they said, oh, whatever. All right, there was some legal stuff in there, but theoretically that's what I heard. Whatever. Do what you want. It's fine. So yeah, we made a few more, and I had no idea it's a toy based on a brand new mobile operating system that has a mascot. I thought either I was going to be stuck with a truckload of little green figures, or it would do really well. And thankfully, it has done really well, and Android is still around. So this is some of the early designs. This is Copperbot. He had sort of a metal finish, but the original designs were all relatively simple, kind of straightforward. Series 2, after that, we got a few more people involved. We did some other materials. So this is Greenion. He was a harder plastic, but he was clear, so you could put stuff in him. And you guys have probably seen this guy, Noogler. He was the first Android Mini with an accessory / different head, the working beanie. And this was designed by a fellow Googler called Jeff Yaksic. He was on the Android team. And this one by Gary Ham called Cupcake. He actually smells like a cupcake, so we're experimenting with stuff like that as well. And Series 3, we continued that. I invited a few more artists to work on different series, and we changed the arm design from the standard little peg to a round sort of ball and cup design, which gives it just a little more freedom, a little more expression. Oops. So this is by my friend Kelly Donato. She does some great artwork called Pandroid, was the pan flute. And my friend Sket, the 8-ball hustler. I think it was the first one with a hat, not the last. And then this one was from Series 3. It all came with a little mini one inside. And this was a favorite from Series 3 by Mad, where it came with a little ball, so you could pull his head off and put the ball in and shake it like a real spray can. And beyond the artist series, we do quite a few for Google internal departments and promotions. This is for analytics. I think the analytics ones are really simple, but they're some of my favorite designs. This is the first one, and then of course they upgraded their interface, so this was the more recent one. And this one has proven to be very popular. You know, they gave it away at South by Southwest. It's really simple, it's really basic, but people just really love it. It's Schemer, you know, for the Schemer project. This is the for the mobile ad unit, Mobley the ad man. Came with a little fedora and a little Nexus phone. And this, I've just been informed, you can only win if you do good work on the UX team. A lot of the other ones are given away at events or for departmental things, but this one seems elusive. Anyone going to I/O? Oh, you might be able to get one of these guys. This is the I/O tester. It's a cross between a crash test dummy and a developer, and oh, they're the same thing, right? So it comes with little safety goggles and a fade in the I/O colors. Hopefully there'll be enough to go around, and hopefully, I think we got some coming here too. So. Whoops. What's up next for Android Minis? I brought some samples. So people really like the clear ones. They can take their heads off. They can put stuff inside of them. And so this is the next set coming out. It's called the Rainbow Series. And it comes in this awesome box, which is also a display case that flips open. And I'm excited about it. It's got one that's sparkly. It's got sparkles. We haven't embedded sparkles in one before, so that was a first. And then coming up later this year is Series 4. It'll be coming out probably late summer, early fall. Looking at like August, September probably. And now I believe I'm going to get grilled with some questions from the audience and from online.
All right, let's give it up for Andrew, guys.
Thanks, guys.
And say your name and your question.
Yeah, my name's Alex. I work here at Google, and I'm a big fan of your toys. And one thing I discovered when I bought one on eBay was that it was a knockoff. And I was wondering, kind of like, how do you guys approach knockoffs? Like, how do you prevent them from happening? And kind of what's your take on that?
It's hard. In some cases, it's impossible.
Just don't buy them.
What's that? Just don't buy them. Well, that's part of it. I mean, people do buy them, but Series 1 came out and was popular, and Series 2 came out and was popular, and naturally some factories saw that and were like, hey, let's just make some of those. So pretty soon there were some really crappy copies out on the market. One way we helped prevent it is I had to switch factories. That factory you saw in the video was a brand new factory, brand new building we had, because Series 2, there were some extras, some dubious quality ones that were slipping out the back door from the factory that I was contracted to earlier. So now I have a tightly controlled supply chain where it's just me and the guy that runs the factory, and we keep the designs down. And then there's the occasional cease and desist, and people in Hong Kong and China tend to ignore those or light fires with them. So luckily I have a representative over there who tries to stay on top of that. But yeah, it's really, I think the best way to combat it is to make better, higher quality and keep innovating. Like Series 3, we added the ball joint arms. I haven't seen anyone copy that. It's too expensive, not worth it. Now, the paint quality we have on the newer ones, it's just you can't copy it for the price that they want for the fake ones. So that's probably the best way, is just to outdo them. Thanks.
Bringing on an artist, how did that start? I mean, was it just like, hey, I'm running out of ideas, can someone help me out? Or were you working with some other artists that you thought could contribute?
Yeah, well, the whole collectible scene, the toy scene, is kind of based off of that, different artists working on different platforms and working together. So while Series 1 was mostly me, just to sort of proof of concept, Series 2 I wanted to get some people from Google involved, do some of their designs, and then Series 3 was more getting other artists that I know and other friends that I have, and it's finding people whose artwork and style would work well with the Android figure itself. Not everyone can design for a limited palette or a limited size.
Sure.
Yeah. Nice. So this one from Mike Allen, Louisville, Kentucky. So there's Cupcake. Why were there no other design code names, Android code names?
After that, there
maybe this is going to one day I'm going to
there
go
are plans.
like that.
That it has been discussed over the years. You keep making fun version names, and we'll keep working on plans. So hopefully, in the next couple of years, we'll see something.
Nice. Over to Dory.
When you first decided you wanted to start making toys, were you working with somebody else who had already made them, or did you figure out the process? Because that looked really involved. I didn't realize how involved it was. So
Yeah,
did you work
it
that
took
out?
a while to learn. Yeah, my first idea was just, I'm going to make a toy. I didn't let myself get discouraged when I realized how impossible that was. So I was going to toy conventions. There's a toy fair every year that's been going on for years in New York. Going to toy stores. The guy who runs the shop in New York that has those toys that I first saw, say, hey, where do you get your stuff? Who makes these things? And eventually I managed to find some connections with some people that were more familiar with the process, and they helped me through the first one. And then after that, I tried to do most of it myself after that. And now, having been at the factory and intimately familiar with the process, and it makes it easier to design toys knowing the technical limitations and how things actually get made. But yeah, it was research, talking to people, schmoozing. I'm not good at it, but I was persistent, so it worked.
All right, so our next question from the Dory out in the public forums was from JF Iowa in Riverside. Will you ever consider allowing fans to submit designs for one of your series? Because I have a couple in mind. Wink, wink.
A lot of people have a lot of good ideas. I don't know, fan sourcing is difficult, because a lot of times you get a lot of things that are like Pokemon or Ultraman, or there's some really cute designs, really great stuff, but a lot of it's not as fun and creative as it could be, and could never get made for copyright reasons. But I think it'd be fun to have a contest where we do some fan stuff. I'd certainly like to get more Google people involved in future series. So maybe we'll have a internal company contest.
Get working.
Yeah. Get some of those creative minds
We
going.
got some artists here.
Yeah. I think that would be fun.
Let's go with the live.
A bunch of people on the public G Plus are asking if not the whole presentation, because you can't show the new design, but the beginning of the presentation is going to be put online so they can show it on the public G Plus.
Yeah, I think most of the stuff up until the secret stuff, we'll have it up there.
Thanks.
All right, this one is from our Googler, Matt. Do you have any fun stories behind any of your Android designs?
Not too fun. I mean, not the ones I can talk about, at least.
All right.
I think some of the fun ones are the ones that get canned for, like the blue screen of death one.
Right.
But yeah, nothing too crazy. Cool.
So the next question is from myself. Did you think it would sell beyond Series 1 when you first designed? I think you partially answered.
I don't think anyone here or myself knew if people would want a phone mascot as a collectible, or to spend money on something that is essentially a marketing tool when you think about it. But yeah, no, I had no idea it would be as popular, as big as, or go on as long as it has, and I'm happy for it. I'd like to keep doing it.
Yes.
All right, another question from Yanni G. And I'm sorry, I'm only going to go there, Yanni, if you're here. There's been some frustration among collectors from the collectors community recently about the recent designs being very similar to each other, only differing by the lettering or the scrolls. What is your take on this?
He's referring to one specific design. He's referring to the Chinese New Year edition, where it came with a little scroll, and each one had a different printed saying on it, seven different ones, so you didn't know which one you would get. I think it's just part of collecting. It's in one way, from a technical, financial standpoint, you need to make variations of things to keep the costs of the crazier ones down. For every plain blue or plain green Android, I can make that crazy one that had 100 prints on it, because it sort of averages it out. But I understand it can be frustrating for completists to find something, or when things are similar to each other, but I think it's part of the game.
This one is from an external, Jonathan from Brooklyn. I think you answered it. Would you consider doing a 5-inch or 8-inch?
Yes.
So.
Yes, I would consider it.
Yes, now I see it.
I think that one's more about 10 inches, if I'm right. Yeah.
Do you also, so part of the question is, do you also do a DIY, do-it-yourself Android?
Yeah, we have plans for a do-it-yourself large version too. So
okay.
I expect to see some pretty crazy electronic versions of that, because there's more room to fit more servos and
right on.
things inside.
Like different design for the big one too?
Well, we're just starting with the green and the DIY, and if it, hopefully we'll be able to get some of the maybe translate some of the existing designs onto the bigger platform. Printing gets harder at that scale. Printing's actually easier the smaller you get. Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe some of the simpler ones.
Makes sense.
All right, just a few more questions here from Alex A. here at Google. How hard is it narrowed down which designs you end up using for each series?
Like as you saw that whole chart of the Series 3 ones, it's tough to decide. I mean, sometimes I decide through those criteria of copyright, possibility, technical things, and then other times it's just sort of a gut feeling, like what's going to work well with other designs that I've gotten, or has this artist had like 3 designs in the last series, something like that. So there's no real formula. It's just sort of how it feels and how it feels in context.
All right, well, let's rotate the last 2 here.
I think this has also been answered from Alex. Do you envision bigger things for the future Androids? And I think you showed us what. So he's thinking ahead, obviously.
We're always working on stuff.
Good questions, though. Good questions. All right. So do you know, like, it takes 3 to 6 months for single projects to get come alive? These figurines from the design phase, and he goes with working with manufacturing and everything, and he works with multiple projects at the same time. I contacted him back in January of this year and say, hey, Andrew, you want to come and have a talk? There's a bunch of people love to have you. Without hesitation, he said, yes, I'll do it. So I applaud his loyalty and commitment.
He promised me free lunch, that's why I showed up.
You can come every month. For sure. Andrew is a pretty big fan of obviously art and everything, and he also appreciates our doodle. So I've seen him tweeting, nice doodles, what we create. So we got something really simple from our doodle team. Appreciate it, and I'm just going to give something.
Awesome.
So you could open it up if you would like.
Yeah, I'm not going to wait. I'm never good at that. Oh, that's awesome.
So this is an artist proof from our doodler. Top
Oh,
doodler.
cool. That's great.
Mr.
Done in the herring style.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Hope you like it.
Cool. Thanks, guys.